Morning. We'll call our meeting to order. Start out with bill introductions. Any bill introductions? Seeing none. We're going to start out with Human Services Subcommittee, Senator McGinn, Kansas Department of Aging and Disability Services. Senator McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for the Kansas Department for Aging and Disability Services. Beginning with 23, the agency submits a revised estimate of $2.7 billion, including $1.1 billion SGF and 362 FTEs in 23. This is an all funds decrease of 161.9 or 5.7, including a decrease of 83.7 million of SGF or 6.9% below the 23 approved amount. Lapsed reappropriations, the agency revised estimate to include supplemental requests to lapse 164 million from all funds, including 63 million SGF. They were reappropriated from the 22 year. The reappropriated funds were budgeted for human service caseloads, and the agency requests lapsing Medicaid caseloads reappropriations as the need for the funds will be reassessed during the human services consensus caseloads process. The governor recommends expenditures of $2.8 billion, including $1.1 billion SGF for 23. This is an all funds increase of $149 million, including an SGF increase of $18.5 million above the 23 year. The governor's recommendation includes 362 FTE positions, and this is unchanged for the 23 revised estimate. The fall 22 caseloads adjustment, governor recommends an addition of 149 million, including 18 million for SGF and 23 to reflect the fall 22 human services consensus caseload estimates. Compared to the FY23 approved amount, the fall 22 consensus caseloads estimate KDADS is an all funds decrease of 14.5 million, including a decrease of 44 million at SGF. SGF decrease below the 23 level is primarily due to the extension of the public health emergency for the 3 quarters of 23 compared to the quarter reflected in the approved amount of 23. The subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendations for 23.
Any questions on 23? Seeing none, please proceed.
The agency for 24 requests $2.8 billion, including $1.1 billion SGF and 397 FTE positions. For 24, this is an all funds increase of 95 million or 3.4%, including an increase of 2.6 million SGF above 23's revised estimate. Agency request includes 21 enhanced requests for all funds increase totaling 105 million, including 46 million of SGF. The governor recommends expenditures of $2.9 billion, including $1.1 billion SGF for year 24. This is an increase of 81 million, including 44 million SGF above the agency's request in 24. The governor's recommendations include fall caseload adjustments, an addition of 126 million, 53.5 million SGF to reflect the fall 22 human services caseload estimates. Emergency mental health bed expansion, governor recommends the addition of 22 million SGF to fund behavioral health emergency room bed expansion. The stated purpose is to expand behavioral health services to patients of all ages who would otherwise meet admission criteria for Osawatomie State Hospital. The enhancements that the governor recommends adoption of is the HCBS rate stabilization, 17.7 million, including 7.1 million SGF, to increase select HCBS service rates on the brain injury autism and technology assistant waivers to match the rates approved by 22 legislature for the frail and elderly waiver. The TBI rehab facility rates $9.3 million, including $3.7 million SGF, to increase the traumatic brain injury rehab facility rate from $700 a day to $1,400 a day. Increased targeted case management rates, $3.8 million, including $1.1 million SGF, to increase the TCM rates for individuals receiving IDD waiver services by 25%, or $43.24 per hour to $54.15 per hour. Expand the Children's Crisis Respite Pilot Program, $1 million SGF for this program to additional communities. Care system automation, $4 million, including $1 million SGF to implement a fully automated system for the client assessment referral evaluation care program. Below you will see the enhancements that the governor did not recommend. I will proceed to the bottom and talk about the enhancements that the governor partially recommended. The governor partially recommended several agency enhancements, including a decrease of $514,500 from all funds, including a decrease of 1.5 SGF below the agency's request. Sports betting FTE position, agency requests 1.1 million SGF to add 2 positions. Governor does not recommend funding these positions using SGF and instead recommends using the agency fund, that the agency fund these positions from the Problem Gambling Addictions Grant Fund. Quality Assurance Behavioral Health FTE, the agency requests 445,145, including 222,573 SGF, to continue funding 5 FTE positions currently funded with the federal block grant. Governor recommends adding the funding but not the FTE positions. Final settings compliance FTE position, the agency requested 492,936, including 246,469 SGF to continue funding 7 FTE positions providing compliance monitoring and oversight of state compliance with the CMS and the HCBS setting final rule. The governor recommends adding these funds, but does not recommend adding the FTEs. IT FTE positions, agency requests 777,900, including 466,700 SGF to add 8 FTEs to support IT functions. The governor recommends partial recommendation of the request in the amount of 388,991, including 233,396 SGF to add 4 FTE positions to support IT functions. The Attorney General's FTE positions, the agency requested 251,000, including 188,285 SGF to add 2 attorney positions. 1 FTE would be supporting Larned State Hospital. The other would support KDAD's, partially the Behavioral Health Commission, for that commission. The governor recommends partial adoption of the request in the amount of 125,523, including 94,143 SGF to add 1 position to support KDAD's Behavioral Health Commission. So, moving along to the Senate subcommittee recommendations. Subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation with the following adjustments. Add language directing the agency to continue funding the Ember Hope Youth Phil pilot program at current levels using existing resources. Add 200,000 SGF for operating support for Envision to assist Envision family programs and advocacy efforts for blind and visually impaired children for 24. Consider it omnibus the addition of 24,003 million, including 9.7 million SGF for 24 to accelerate the CCBHC transition certificate based on readiness, notwithstanding the schedule set forth in 21 through House Bill 2208. Add 2.7 million, including 1.1 million SGF, to increase the targeted case management reimbursement rate to $62 per hour for '24. Add 6 million SGF to increase allocations for substance abuse disorder services for the uninsured in '24. Add 1 million SGF in '24 to analyze the Kansas Assessment Management Information System, KAMIS, current functions, measure performance, and make the recommendations to implement changes to maximize the value and performance of the system. Now, a few more on the back. Add 133,075 SGF for '24 to increase annual funding for mental health first aid training to 266,150 per year. Add 15 million, including 5.9 SGF, to provide a 7% rebase of the nursing home facility daily Medicaid rates for '24 and review it omnibus. Add 1.5 million SGF for nutritional services for seniors for '24 to be distributed through the area agencies on aging. Add 6.5 million, including 2.6 million SGF, to provide 5% increase to the reimbursement rate of providers of HCBS frail elderly waiver services for '24. Add language requiring KDADs to conduct a study to review the IDD service provider costs and to provide recommendations for funding adjustments based on inflationary indexes for '24. Add 2.1 million SGF and 1 FTE position for '24 to build capacity of crisis services for Kansans with IDD. In addition, add language requiring the agency to submit a report of the program to the Senate Committee on Public Health and Welfare, House Committee on Health and Human Services, House Social Service Budget Committee, and Senate Ways and Means Human Services Subcommittee. Add 30 million, 0.8, including 12.4 million SGF for '24 to establish an additional Medicaid reimbursement for nursing home facilities based on the percentage of Medicaid residents served and review at omnibus. Add 5 million SGF for '24 to reimburse healthcare providers, law enforcement, and counties on an hourly basis for patient observation and transportation following an evaluation and approval for stay at a state mental health hospital and admission of the state hospital. Add language to increase the maximum transfer from lottery vending machines for mental health services to 9 million for '24. Add 3 million, including 1.3 million SGF, and add language to increase PACE reimbursement rates by 5% in '24. Add 2.5 million from federal funds, all from the 66 million ARPA funds allocated to the agency by the State Finance Council at the conclusion of the SPARK process, to expand PACE for '24 and review it omnibus if ARPA funds are unavailable for this purpose. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report. I will stand for questions, but I also would like to, before a motion is made, I do have an amendment.
Okay, you want to go ahead with your amendment?
Can do that. This was just missed by the subcommittee. It was not something that came in later. We just missed it. It's our understanding that the folks that struggle with Alzheimer's and families who want to call, when they call KDADs, there's really not a targeted individual to answer the phone and help them get to where they need to be and the services they need to be. So the background on this, Alzheimer's Association requested this position. KDODS does not currently have a coordinated programs targeting individuals with dementia and Alzheimer's. Senior Care Act and Older American Act programs are available to individuals with Alzheimer's and dementia who are age 60 and over. So the amendment is to add 116,250 of SGF for 1 FTE position to fund a dementia services coordinator position for '24.
We have a motion, second by Senator Clays. Questions on the amendment? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Questions on the 24 report? Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just quick, and I apologize, I stepped in late, had to speak to a group. So what was our total add over the governor's budget in this one? Is that reflected on page one? Is it 76 million, roughly 40 million SGF, 37? All funds, is that the total add by the subcommittee?
So that is. Okay, so 76 million, yes.
So my question is, in the light, I mean, because not that any one of these things isn't a good thing to do, any conversation with the governor's office about some of them being processed by GBA, because what happens in the political process is things get left out of the underlying budget that are widely understood to be necessary, and then this just exacerbates the difference between the governor's underlying budget and the legislature's budget, and it's done for political purposes. So I was just curious if there's any conversation with the governor's office about some of those potential positions coming through GBA, which brings her up closer to us.
May I?
Senator McGinn.
Thank you. These were wishes of the subcommittee after hearing testimony for 3 hours. And it also, most of these positions are half of what the House put in. So we did not give them their full amount. Most people got half of what they asked or requested.
Understand, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Masterson.
Understand the process. That's why my question dealt with more the governor's office. The House doesn't seem to have the same concerns we do about the political aspects of these. But I'm not questioning any single one of these, just the process of it all. But that answers my question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions? Senator Kirshen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back on page 3, under the sports betting FTE positions, it reads there, the agency requested 1.1 million SGF to add 2 FTE positions. Is that correct? Or is it says they won't use that money, but it's still.
Senator McGinn.
Under the sports betting.
So they're getting their request. It's just going to be funded under the problem gambling and addictions.
I understand that.
Okay.
I was on how they arrived at the requested 1.1 million to add 2 FTE positions, and further down the line, they're going to use different funds, but it's still the same rate.
Well, it's also their outreach programs. But if you want to wait for just a few moments, I will pull out of our packet that you have received as well. Give me that page.
I was just putting 2 positions for $1 million.
Oh, there's an outreach program that goes
Oh, okay.
along with it. It's not just 2 FTEs.
Okay.
But
I
let me
didn't
find
read that in it, I guess.
You have the page? Oh, you're going to find it on there? Closer than I thought. Okay, so the FTE positions will double the current size of the problem gambling team to allow the state-run casino gaming area to be supported by a full-time problem gaming specialist. Additionally, the funds will assist gambling prevention programs and updating their public awareness campaign to include identifying and treating sports betting problems.
Senator Kirshen.
Well, I don't, I still, it still doesn't sound right for some reason.
Well, the way I understand, may I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead, Senator McGinn.
The way I understand it, they're adding 2 FTEs to cover the area, but they're also adding prevention program. So to do a prevention program, I have no idea what it is because I don't go to these types of facilities. I'm assuming it might be television ads, it might be billboard ads, it might be mailers to people that register, that go to casinos. It's an advertising, or not an advertising, but a campaign to make sure people know where they can get help. And generally, it's not the individual that needs the help, it's the spouse or the children or family member.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Pittman.
I appreciate the conversation there. I do feel like sometimes it looks like we're spending quite a bit of money on problem gambling when we don't actually receive that much money as a state from gaming. It's nearly 20 to 25% on preventing sports gaming of what we're receiving as a state. It seems like there's something wrong with that equation, in my opinion.
Other questions? Seeing none, Senator McGinn, you'd like to make your motion?
Thank you, and I don't disagree with Senator Pittman. I'd be happy to make a motion to eliminate all gambling in the state of Kansas. But since I don't have that before me, I will make a motion to approve the Kansas Department of Aging and Disability Services budget for 23 and 24 as amended.
We have a motion, a second by Senator Clays. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Senator McGinn. Next, we'll have the Higher Education Subcommittee report, and we'll have Senator Alley, post-secondary education. Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Post-secondary education system-wide, the agency submitted a revised estimate of $3.6 billion, including $1.1 billion SGF in 23. This is an increase of $66.1 million, or 1.9% above the approved amount for all funding sources. The expenditures increase are primarily in salary and wages of $47 million, contractual services of $49 million, capital outlay of $24 million, and assistance of $13.9 million, with partially offsetting decreases in commodities of $3.6 million and aid to local units $57.3 million. The major increase in expenditures is in the restricted fees funds of $96 million. The governor concurs with the agency's revised estimate in 23. The subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation in 23. And I'll stand for questions.
Questions on 2023? Seeing none, if you would like to do 24.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For 24, the agency requests $3.8 billion, including $1.2 billion SGF for fiscal year 2024. This is an increase of $189.9 million, or 5.3% above the fiscal year 23 revised estimate. The increase is primarily in aid to local units, $95.8 million, and assistance, $85.5 million, compared to the agency's revised 23 budget. The SGF increase is primarily due to increase of $179.6 million for enhanced request totaling $253 million, all from all funding sources. The request includes a $20 million joint request from Wichita State University and the University of Kansas Medical Campus, $850,000 for the HERO Act Scholarship, and $45 million for renewal and demolition, and $78 million for the state investment in infrastructure to modernize campuses. The governor recommends 3.6 million, including 1.1 billion SGF for 24. This is a decrease of 146 million SGF, or 3.9% below the agency's request. The decrease is primarily due to reduced expenditures in the aid to local units, 91 million, and other assistance, 39.2 million. The subcommittee concurs with the governor's recommendation for 2024 with the following adjustments for 24 and 25. 1, add language for WSU authorizing bonding authority of 17.9 million, all from special revenue funds for the University Stadium renovation for 2024. 2, add language for WSU authorizing bonding authority of 15.2 million, all from special revenue funds for the expansion of the National Institute for Aviation, NIAR, Technology and Innovation Building for 2024. 3, add language for Emporia State University authorizing bonding authority of 15 million, all from special revenue funds for the demolition and renovation of certain facilities and construction of a new Department of Nursing and Student Wellness Center for 2024. 4, add the language for the Kansas Comprehensive Grant that of the 35.3 million SGF appropriated for the scholarship program for 24, no less than 22.5 million is distributed to private and independent institutions, with the remainder to state universities and Washburn. Each institution must provide a one-to-one match for one-to-one local match from non-state or private monies. 5, add language for the Kansas Comprehensive Grant that of the funding appropriated for this scholarship program for fiscal year 2025, 50% is distributed to the private and independent institutions, with the remainder to the state institutions and Washburn. Each institution must provide a one-to-one match for the non-state private monies. 6, during the finalization of the budget, the Board of Regents request for 6 million SGF for Fort Hays State to offset the elimination of student fees supporting construction of a Center for Student Success at Memorial Union for 2024. The governor's recommendation does not include funding for this item. 7, review during finalization of budget the Board of Regents request for $890,000 for Washburn University to support IT network security improvements for fiscal year 2024. The governor's recommendation includes $450,000 SGF for this item. Number 8, review at omnibus the Board of Regents request for 78.9 million SGF for building a talent pipeline initiative for fiscal year 2024. The committee will consider deleting 1.5 from the micro internships and adding 1.5 to Washburn for scholarships. The governor's recommendation includes 32.9 million SGF for this item, including 4 million in micro internships. 9, review at omnibus the Board of Regents request for 45.4 million SGF for inflation and cybersecurity at state universities in Washburn for 2024. The governor's recommendation includes 27.6 million SGF for this item. Number 10, review at omnibus the Board of Regents request for 20 million SGF to construct a health science education center in Wichita, which is a joint project between WSU and the University of Kansas Medical Center for 2024. The governor's recommendation does not include funding this item. Review at omnibus the Board of Regents request for 25 million SGF for KSU, support for the Agriculture Innovation and Interdisciplinary Program, Biomanufacturing Program, and the K-State 105 initiative for fiscal year 2024. The governor's recommendation includes 5 million SGF for the Biomanufacturing Program. Review at omnibus the Board of Regents request for 850,000 SGF for the Heroes Act Scholarship Program for 2024. The governor's recommendation includes 150,000 SGF for this item. 13, review at omnibus the Board of Regents request for 1.9 million SGF for Emporia State University to support the Cybersecurity Center Smart Kansas 21 initiative and Profit Aquatic Research Center for 2024. The governor's recommendation includes 1.6 SGF for this item. Review at omnibus, number 14, the Board of Regents request for $10 million SGF for Pittsburgh State to support the National Institute of Materials Advancement, Center for Emerging Technologies, the Global Center for STEM, and the National Center for Micropolitan Studies for fiscal year 2024. The governor's recommendation includes $4 million for SGF for NIMA. 15, review at omnibus, the Board of Regents request for $13 million SGF for technical colleges to maintain data network security for fiscal year 2024. The governor's recommendation includes $6.5 million SGF for this item. Subcommittee recommends the consideration be given to adding 6.5 SGF, which would provide a total of 13 million SGF for this item. 16, review at omnibus, the Board of Regents request for 6.9 SGF for community colleges to support capital outlay expenditures and advisors for K-12 students for fiscal year 2024. The governor's recommendation does not include funding for this item. Number 17, review at omnibus, the Board of Regents request for 35 million SGF to continue the university's capital renewal initiative addressing deferred maintenance for fiscal year 2024. The governor's recommendation includes 20 million SGF for this item. Considered omnibus, the possible of adding 500,000 SGF for university engineering initiative to support the engineering programs at private and nonprofit colleges for fiscal year 2024. Consider adding language requiring one-to-one match for the non-state and private monies and directing the funds only be used for the recruitment and retention of instructional faculty, student aid internships, and the purchasing of engineering equipment. Staff note, educational institutions eligible for funding through the university engineering initiative is currently defined as KSU, KU, and WSU. And with that, I'll stand for questions. I do have two amendments.
Excuse me, you want to go ahead and do your amendments first?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number 1, delete $1,784,260 from the $4 million SGF for the micro internship funds within the post-secondary operating grant and add the same amount for the need-based aid for students at Washburn University within the post-secondary operating grant for fiscal year 2024, and review this item at omnibus.
They're handing them out. Everyone should have them. I'll give everyone a minute to look them over.
That is the one we're looking at.
Okay. Any questions on this amendment?
There's a notation
You
that
have got it.
review the list of possible amendments on community colleges at omnibus.
Okay. We'll go ahead and look at the first one. Senator McGinn.
Thank you. On the First Amendment, I'm just trying to understand. So we took away from everyone else to add to Washburn, correct, to give them a micro grant? Is that right?
No, I think there's another,
We do that.
Mr. Chairman,
Can you show?
Senator Alley.
I think there's another handout coming that will show the funding for that.
So I'd like to understand the delete 1.7 million of the 4 million of the SGF from the micro internship funds.
Get this handout.
Okay. Yeah.
You got an opinion on this? Do you know anything about the micro internship program?
Okay, we all should have the handout now. In the governor's budget, there was a post-secondary operating grant through the board's office. And as you see that the amounts composed within the following budget items, and this is how the board would allocate the funds now, the total funds.
Center Alley. If you could wait just 1 second, please. Didn't get them handed out on this end yet.
Okay, sorry about that.
Goes this way?
Okay, if you want to go over your sheet, Center Alley.
What brought this to our attention was that Washburn was left out for this list first time. And so to make up for that, we had looked at the $4 million grant, taking $1.5 million away and putting it to Washburn on that. And that's what the intent of this was. When they did the recalculated it, the amount was $1.784 million for Washburn. And that's what was recalculated into that.
Question, Senator McGinn.
Thank you. I'm just trying to find it in the backup materials. So I thought I read somewhere the reason why Washburn didn't get the micro intern opportunities because they gave it to the state public universities, which would be our research and regionals.
Where is it in the budget?
Amount.
Amendment is adjusting that. They didn't include it in the first report out. They didn't include it in. So that's the refund.
What they're fighting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions?
Other questions? Senator Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering, are these changes being requested from a certain organization and from the colleges themselves, or is it something that that maybe the senator came up with? Or?
Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, when Washburn was left out, they requested it.
Senator Petty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as I'm looking at the green sheet, so is the green sheet, is that the reference point for the source of, for the deletion? I'm not sure.
Senator Alley.
Yes, this is the new sheet, and it makes, what page are we on? It's on, the explanation of that is on page 955 in the original report. And basically it said the governor recommends a partial adoption of this request, which includes $20 million for scholarships, $4 million for micro internships, and $8.5 million to improve student outcomes, and $437,700 for the program at Washburn. And so we're showing that in the document with the green sheet.
Okay, and so the line item on the green sheet, is that the financial aid and micro internship opportunities? Is that the column that you're taking the 4 million from? Or you're deleting what? I'm sorry.
Senator Alley.
Or is it the, on the green sheet, I'm not sure which item, or is this somewhere within these items? I'm looking at page 955, but I'm trying to reconcile the green sheet with page 955.
Yeah, I know. It's an adjustment.
Senator Patty.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Senator Alley, I guess if you'd like to make a motion on each amendment first.
First Amendment, I would like to make a motion that we delete $1,784,260 from the $4 million SGF for the micro internships funds, as the handout has told us, and add that to the report out.
Have a motion, second by Senator McGinn. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next, we'll have your Second Amendment. Senator Alley.
Second Amendment is at the report out, we had a handout from the community colleges. And what we wanted to do there was to review that, and I think we're handing that out now. And we're going to acknowledge that and review that at omnibus.
Senator Petty.
So, Senator, this is not impacting any of the listed items currently on this list now of 19. It's just reviewing other items concerning the community college. Is this correct?
Senator Alley.
This list that you see that was just handed out were the requests from the community colleges to be included, and they were not included in the previous. We just want them considered at omnibus.
Any other questions? Seeing no other questions, you would like to make your motion?
Make a motion that we accept with that, review the list of possible amendments that was handed out on the community colleges at omnibus.
Have a motion, second by Senator Fagg. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Other amendments, Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got a proviso I'll have handed out, and I will explain. It's like everyone has a copy. This proviso concerns the deployment of diversity, equity, and inclusion oaths that are required by applicants to positions at our state-funded universities. These DEI oaths are veiled litmus tests to ascertain support for radical race-focused ideologies. This will ban the use of those questions and litmus tests at our post-secondary educational institutions.
Questions for Senator Clay? Senator McGinn.
I need more information and I need an example. I just need to understand this.
Sure.
Senator Clays.
I'd be happy to read you an example. An assistant or associate professor of journalism and mass communications at the University of Kansas. Additional candidate instruction. Describe your experiences working with people from diverse backgrounds and explain how these experiences reflect your commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion. A professor of practice for clinical child psychology at the University of Kansas, requiring evidence of demonstrated commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion in a statement on the applicant's CV and from the applicant's references. An assistant professor of physics at Kansas State University requires a statement on diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, including past and future contributions to DEI in both teaching and research. An assistant professor of biology forensics at Washburn University must submit a teaching philosophy statement that addresses inclusive teaching practices. An assistant professor of nursing at Fort Hays State University must submit a diversity statement describing how experiences that reflected a commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. A professor of pharmacology at Kansas State University requires a one-page diversity statement. Professor of law at Washburn, a demonstrated commitment to inclusive teaching practices. Just a few examples.
Other questions for Senator Clay? Senator Petty? Was you done, Senator McGinn?
No, I appreciate those examples. I'm just trying to understand are they having to submit these for their employment?
Correct. They are requiring these as a part of the applicant's application packet, and then they are used by those hirers to exclude applicants from academia that do not share the radical ideology of those doing the hiring. For instance, if one believes that everyone should be treated equally, regardless of their race, they would not meet that test and would be excluded.
Okay, we'll take Senator Petty's question. Senator Petty.
Thank you. While she's pondering, so there's the implication here that because there's a question asked about diversity, that's a radical request. You used the word radical in your statement just a moment ago.
Senator Clays.
What's the question?
I'm asking you, you just said that asking anything of a potential employee at our higher education institutions about diversity is a radical request. You made that statement of being radical. Can you expound on why wanting to ask about diversity? Because, I mean, maybe it's just I and everything that I see around me, we have diversity in our state, in our communities, in our schools, and it would seem that that it's a reality. So I don't understand how that's radicalizing.
Sure.
Senator Clays.
DEI, CRT, SEL, all branches of the same rotten tree that Stokes Division. These are ideological loyalty oaths. This proviso, of course, bans those oaths. These are used to exclude applicants who believe things like people should be treated equally. That's not what they're looking for from this. They're looking for something else. They're looking for an equity type statement, one that involves a form of reverse racism, perhaps you might call it, and this would ban those oaths.
Senator Petty.
I would see we are far from reverse racism. We have a long way to go to think about any kind of reverse racism here. But so you've made a statement just now about loyalty oaths. I think there's is there a difference then between loyalty oaths and asking any question about understanding or philosophy about diversity?
Senator Clays.
Well, again, this bars asking those types of questions of applicants. Applicants would be judged based upon their experience in the field in which they are being hired, as opposed to being judged based upon any commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is a specific set of goals, as opposed to simply being the right person for the job.
Senator Petty.
Well, it seems to me this goes very far. this session had to endure a presentation in public health and welfare from a doctor on do no harm. And, basically saying anytime that anyone asks a question about diversity, that we're undermining their educational level. And yet, I'm looking here, we're all white. We don't live in an all-white society, so encouraging us to look at the populations that we work with and understanding how the employees at our universities, and I have a second question, I have a question along with this, would want to, it seems that would want to be a piece of looking at their overall skills and abilities to be recognized in the job. But so this could not, so nothing about, excuse me, nothing about diversity could ever be involved in any kind of application. And we're talking about, does this also address our private institutions as well?
Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It relates to any post-secondary institution which receives monies appropriated from the state general fund or special revenue fund or funds for FY '24 and '25.
Senator Petty.
So when it says endorse an ideology, so would that mean that a private institution, I'll just use them as an example, that is church-related could not ask anything about religion?
Senator Clays.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It relates to ideologies. It would not allow anyone to require that individual induce, solicit, or encourage the applicant, employee, student, or contractor to endorse any ideology, including the ideology of diversity, equity, or inclusion, or provide a statement articulating their experience, commitment to, or expertise in diversity, equity, or inclusion, provide differential consideration to any applicant, employee, student, or contractor on the basis of such person's provision of unsolicited statement of commitment to an ideology, including the ideology of diversity, equity, or inclusion. It's a public institution. Yeah, if you're asking about the institution's post-secondary educational institution in Section 2, of course, means that it is a public institution.
So it's not directed to our private institutions.
Senator Clays.
Again, it's post-secondary educational institutions as are used in statute.
Senator Petty.
Thank you. So, so this kind of statement then says that we're looking at a budget here that includes a lot of items that have public funds going to private institutions. And I'm not saying this because I don't like private institutions, but the reality is we have a lot of public funds going to private institutions, but yet we want to impose certain restrictions on public institutions in their applicants of employees, but not treat private institutions in the same way, which they often I would suspect, endorse would have questions about diversity and ideology as well. So maybe we should look at our budget and make sure that these public funds aren't going to the private institutions that we don't want to impose the same restrictions on.
Any other questions? Senator Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a broad-reaching policy brought into a Ways and Means Appropriation Committee, setting a pretty significant policy for our education. We haven't really had a hearing on this. We haven't had proponents or opponents. Maybe the senator has an idea here that could be explored. Maybe those apples aren't as rotten as he says. Maybe they are. I don't know. But we haven't really explored this in terms of all the different impact this could have on our schools. And I think it's particularly irrelevant to this committee at this point. We should be looking this as an actual bill out there and having a broader discussion rather than setting policy in this. It does talk about ideologies. We see the repetition of diversity, equity, or inclusion. You know, these are just some of the ideologies that we could talk about. It could be ideologies about how you teach, your teaching methodology, and ideology around philosophy. I mean, this is very broad-reaching, and it's banning anyone from talking about that. And I think it's casting the net way too far. I don't think we should be considering this amendment in here, maybe consider it as a bill, Mr. Chair. I can't challenge the germaneness in the committee, I'm sure, because I'm sure it's relevant. We can do anything we want in the Ways and Means Committee, but I really don't think we should be handling this at this point and having discussion for 30 minutes to set this policy.
You didn't have a question, just a statement? Okay. Other questions or statements? Seeing none, Senator Clays.
I move the proviso amendment.
I have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Second by Senator Fagg. Any other questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Mr. Chairman,
Senator McGinn.
I'd like to be recorded as passed because I'm not an employment attorney and don't have any background in that area. And I'm not saying that this would be a bad thing. I don't understand it. I need to understand the whole thing and how it impacts our public schools. Because obviously we give money to private schools as well, and it won't impact them. So anyway, I'd just like to be recorded as pass.
Thank you. And Senator Petty and Senator Pittman record as no. Okay, thank you. Any other amendments? Seeing none, committee, let me check here. I think this is Senator Petty.
I did have a question concerning on number 4, the adding language for the Kansas Comprehensive Grant. And so if I'm recalling correctly, so this no less than $22.5 million is distributed to private and independent institutions, and that amount of that money is set up that way because is this trying to replace money that they felt they did not get last year?
Senator Alley.
I believe that is correct.
I don't have it with me. I think we all received it. The number of students that are at our, private and independent institutions, as opposed to the number of students that are our public institutions, as well as the number of students that are eligible for the Kansas Comprehensive Grants. And it's at least 3 to 1 in distribution of the number of students. So although I understand this language, I do think that this amendment is really not fair when we talk about the number of students that we want to benefit in the state of Kansas.
Did you have a question or just a statement on that?
Well, I actually would like to see it just back to the 1-to-1 or back to the original distribution and not have that statement in there, no less than $22.5 million is distributed to private and independent institutions. Because that means that that only leaves, of that $35.3 million, that only leaves $13 million for our public institutions and for the bulk of the students that are actually eligible for the Kansas Comprehensive Grant.
Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this was discussed at last meeting. I think you were not here during that time we discussed that last meeting.
I guess after the meeting, if you want to, talk to the staff or to Senator Alley, more than welcome to see if they can't help explain it to you.
Thank you. I think I understand it. I just don't see the, the fairness of the distribution. So I'll go on. I have a second question. It's about number 5. And again, this 50% to private of the Kansas Comprehensive Grant account, I know it was done, I believe, and Senator Alley, you can confirm this, 60-40 last year, which I think, well, I think it's almost 70-30, but 60-40 more appropriately matches the number of students in our institutions that are, whether public or private, that are receiving the comprehensive grant. Would that be correct?
Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do not believe that is correct. I think the instructions by this body previously, in the previous year, funding year, were this grant should be administered 50-50, 50% private, 50% public colleges. It was not distributed that way last year. This language in number 5 says in 25, we, being this body, wanted to be 50-50.
I can understand that number 5, but I'm talking about the number of students that actually take advantage of the Kansas Comprehensive Grants in our public institutions as compared to the number of students percentage-wise in our private institutions. Do you have that figure?
Senator Alley.
I do not have that figure. However, that was not part of the discussion when we made the 50% split in the previous year.
Senator Petty.
I think is a valid point. That's why I'm bringing it up right now.
I concede the point.
Any other questions? Seeing none, committee, that concludes our work for today. We are adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, can I make the motion?
Yes, oh, sorry. I thought we were ready to do that. Okay. Senator Alley.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we adopt the post-secondary education statewide report as recommended and as amended.
We have a motion, second by Senator Clays for 23 and 24 and 25, all 3 years. Motion by Senator Alley, second by Senator Clays. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Committee, I think that does conclude our work. We are adjourned.